Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm Tim Harridge. Thank you so much for swinging back by. Today, we're going to do something a little different. As you know, we have really done our best to do all of our episodes in person. We wanted to try out some Zoom-type episodes to where we could expand our network. And specifically during the summer, it's kind of hard to get people to travel to Dallas when it's 185 degrees outside. So when we decided to do a couple Zoom interviews, we reached out to one of my mastermind friends, a person that I look up to, someone that when they give advice in the rooms, I turn and listen instead of roll my eyes. So today our guest is Michael Pinter. Michael, thank you for being here.
It is an honor, Tim.
Well, I'm glad you're here, man. So why don't you just take about 60 seconds and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I was in the mortgage business for 17 years, worked for the same company from 1997 to 2013. I was dabbling in real estate at the time. And since 2013, I have been full-time investing in New York, mostly New York area until recently where I've expanded to Texas too. And I am a full-time real estate investor. It's the only thing I do, and I love it.
Well, I love the signs behind you. If you're listening online, you got to make sure you watch the video of this episode because it's stay hungry, it's ambition, it's all the things that we as entrepreneurs have to embody. Michael, the first segment every week is called The Bluff, the bottom line up front. You know, look, there's a big chance people could listen and then end up tuning out halfway through. They stop and get gas, forget to turn it back on. So what I like to do is take the first 2 minutes for you to talk to the audience, tell them maybe some things you're seeing, things you're observing, areas of the business you're focused on, areas you're avoiding, and maybe even some quick tips or tricks of things they should be focused on or paying attention to. I guess think of it as the cliff notes for what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes. You good? All right, so Michael, the bottom line up front, go.
What I'm seeing in New York and really most of the parts of the country, where the other parts of the country that I operated in, is that there is still a lack of supply. So even though last summer when rates went up a lot, that reduced the demand a little, I'm finding that most of the markets I'm in are very, very strong because there just aren't as many houses available for the amount of people that want them. And what I'm seeing is that the people that were looking at a higher price point, and in New York, you know, we have very high price points. So somebody, let's say, looking for $1 million house is still looking for a house. They're just not looking for $1 million house. They're looking for an $800,000 house. And the people that are looking for $800,000 are looking for $550,000 or $600,000. Most of my properties are on the lower end. I don't do a lot of the luxury space. So I found it's been really good. I'm getting prices higher than I even expected. And what I'm doing a lot of, and a lot of my competitors don't do, is wholetailing. So where I'll buy a property that's in decent condition, do very little or nothing to it, and put it on the market. Even though that's very expensive in New York due to the massive closing costs that we have, and because of the higher price points, the interest expenses and all of our holding costs, it's still working out for me. And wholetailing has been something that I think a lot of people in my area don't do, which has been to my advantage.
Well, that's great. Now, you know, my good friend Rick Sharga always says that people prefer to live indoors. And, you know, we have more people than we have houses available. So I completely agree with you that. Let's talk about your turning point. You said you were in the mortgage business. Now you're full-time, full-bore real estate investing. Maybe tell us your turning point and then a little bit about kind of what your organization was at that turning point and what it is today.
Sure. So I really liked the mortgage business until around 2008, 2009. I'd been in it for about 10, 11 years at that point. And then everything really hit the fan. After that crash, my company really wasn't doing crappy loans. We weren't going out of business, but we were getting, and I was responsible for it in large part, dealing with a lot of the repurchase requests from the major lenders like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. And it was just absurd. At the same point, government started the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And I think my company was the first or the second non-bank entity to be audited by them. And the people auditing us didn't know what the hell they were doing. And they were just telling us to hire people and hire auditors and then hire an outside company to audit them and hire inside people to audit them. And it was like insane. And I said at that point that I could not stay in this business. Unfortunately, I didn't leave for another 4 years, which was stupid of me. But that was a turning point where I said I need to get out of the mortgage business, which I felt like the residential mortgage business, which I thought was crazily highly regulated. At the same point, I had been dabbling in some investment properties, and those were working out much better. And I had a partner who worked with me in the mortgage business at that time, and he started raising a lot of money to go buy houses. And it just seemed like one part of what I was doing was working out really well, and the other part was not working out well. And I said, I need to get out of the mortgage business and start becoming a full-time real estate investor.
Michael, in your background, well, along with the nice, cool posters that Mike Hambright at Investor Fuel sends us, there are 4 medals hanging. And I know those are the biggest giver awards. I also know that you're lucky that the sponsors don't get to compete in the same category as you, because I would beat you. But no,
You would.
now you're a tremendous giver, and we're entrepreneurs. This business is about making money for our family and helping our family. Would you talk maybe here about why you're so passionate? Because I watch you. You are passionate. You're like, no, give me the mic. I got to tell this guy what I know to be true. What makes you so passionate about helping others?
So I've been a member of Investor Fuel for over 4 years now, and I have gotten so much out of the group I can't even quantify it or describe it. To me, it's not just a group of great people that I like hanging out with. It's tremendously informative, and I think the strength of the group is that almost every single person there believes in collaboration and not competition, and that if I have some method, tactic, or product that I use that help my business, the attitude there is I want to share it and I want everybody to do well with it. I understand there are other masterminds where it may not be as collaborative as Investor Fuel is. So I always feel like I want to give, and every time I've given, and I give as much as I can, I get back in return something that I didn't anticipate. Whether it's a friend or somebody I travel to his area and we hang out together, whether it's something he has that's of value to me that I didn't even know he had. It's very common for people to come there and think they have nothing to give, but I find that I just want to give as much as I can because I've gotten so much from the group.
That's one of the best things about this business, in my opinion, is we're all out kind of on our own little island a lot of times. And when we get to come together in any venue like Investor Fuel or some of the other masterminds, or heck, honestly, a happy hour at a local brewery, it's just we all just want to help each other stay successful, because what I say all the time, if you take a room of investors and you divide them into 1 to 5 years experience, 6 to 10 years experience, 11 to 15 years experience, and 15 plus, the very, very small group is the 15 plus, and it's amazing the drastic drop off, because it is a bespoke business and every property is different. And if you don't build your knowledge base continually, the fatal mistake can happen so easily. Would you talk about how maybe that's driven you towards your wholetail strategy, and why you've opted to execute that above all?
Sure. So the first 4 years I was in business, I didn't understand the direct to sell. I didn't even know what direct to seller marketing was. So 2013 to 2017, I bought all my houses at live foreclosure auctions in my county, and from some bank owned realtors. And it got to a point where I really couldn't do that anymore because there were a lot more people coming to the auctions, and I really had no idea if I was going to buy anything, over the course of several months. At that point, I spoke to, I think it was Brad Chandler in DC, who explained to me you have to really start marketing direct to sellers. And the reason why I really wanted to get away from what I was doing, besides the advantages of marketing direct to seller, was that I got up to a point where I think I had 17 renovations going on at one time, and really the wheel started coming off. And I realized that the parts of the business that I hated were dealing with contractors, dealing with building departments, and we have a lot of different building departments. So I wanted to minimize that part. And even now, I try to wholesale what I can. It's probably 40 to 50% of the properties I go into contract on. But I try to avoid doing major renovations. Now, sometimes I need to, but the concept of wholetailing, where I'm going to buy it, assuming it's livable and mortgageable to an end user, and do minimal work to it and put it on the market, even if I may make a little bit less than doing the work for a major renovation, to me, is a much more comforting scenario, because again, the parts of the business that I hate are contractors and building departments.
Well, I can tell you, we are cut from the same cloth on that as well, because I say it frequently. It will be a glorious time in my life when I no longer ever get a text message from the Home Depot. I love the Home Depot. If I won the lottery and had a couple $100 million to blow, I would go buy an entire store. But I would not pay for things that people need because they forgot, the widget that went with the gasket, and they had to go there 5 or 6 times. So I'm 1,000,000% with you, and that's a great segue. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I am going to have you talk a little bit about friction and how you've overcome that in multiple business ventures. So stick around. We'll be right back. Here at RCN Capital, we understand that everyone's financial needs are different. Whether you're pursuing long-term or short-term ventures, our wide range of loan programs will help reach your financial goals with ease and flexibility. We have loan programs for fix and flips, long-term rentals, new construction, and multifamily properties. And don't forget to ask about our Platinum program for experienced investors. To learn more about our loan programs or apply, click the link in our bio or email info@rcncapital.com. Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. I'm Tim Harridge. Don't forget, go below wherever you're listening or watching this. Give us a rating. Click subscribe. Like. Share, help us help others. Thank you again for being here. Now, Michael, building departments in New York, I don't even want to get into that because it gives me a headache thinking about it. But how many houses will your company buy this year? Contract. I'll say contract.
I would say we're going to contract hopefully between 60 and 70.
So I thought the market was dead and no one was buying houses, Michael.
So, I hear that all the time, but as I said before, the retail market is really strong, and thankfully, I don't want to get into the whole difference of New York, but New York is dramatically different than every other state in the way transactions take place. But one of the huge advantages of New York being so different is that there really isn't a lot of competition. So I live on Long Island. There's 2 counties here. It's about 3 million people, suburb of New York City, and I don't think there's more than 5 or 6 guys that market direct to sellers on the whole island, which is absurd when you think of, just think of the people in Oklahoma that we have in investor fields, a bunch of them, and there's 1 million people in the whole state of Oklahoma or less. So one of the advantages of New York is lack of competition, and the fact that I have been marketing direct to sellers for years, I think puts me at a big advantage over people that are newer, and certainly over the people that are, don't understand how marketing direct to seller works.
From talking to you, I always sense that ethics and honesty are a huge part of your business. And hearing what you just said, being in business in the same real industry, in the same area for such a long time, could you maybe touch a little bit on reputation and building out a reputation over the long haul versus focusing on short-term gains?
Sure. So there are people who come in and out of the business in my area all the time, who are people that are, making offers on properties that they cannot possibly buy at that price. And I think it unfortunately, some of those people give people in our industry a bad name. But for me, one of the big advantages of working with me, and I think, and I get deals from referrals all the time, is that when I give my price is my price, and I may wholesale it. But if I can't find anybody to wholesale it with, I'm not going to dump the deal. I'm going to close on it. Another thing in New York, which makes it different, which may surprise you, is there really are no inspection contingencies in New York. Every single contract I go into, I'm pretty much contingency free. I don't have any way out. The only way I can get out of it is if there's a title issue. So I'm ready to close or assign every single contract I go into. And I think that definitely helps with my reputation, because I'm not jerking sellers around ever. And I think, again, longevity, as you said, is rare. There's very few people who have been doing this for a long time. There's probably one that I could think of that's been doing it longer than me in my area. So I am hopeful that my reputation precedes me in a positive way.
What's the average price point of like maybe your purchase contracts if you were to average it out for the year?
Probably close to 400.
So ballpark, I mean, you're doing 30 million in purchase volume a year, and just knowing the math, you're buying 50 to 60 million dollars worth of real estate every year. Um, Now you said that interest rates obviously have affected the retail market. Maybe talk a little bit about the avatar of the home buyers that you're serving on these wholetails. I'm very interested. Are these people that are like using FHA 203K loans to buy and fix up the house? Or these people that just have cash and they're willing to do all the work themselves? Could you talk maybe a little bit about the purchaser you cater to on the wholesale side?
It's a good question. It really depends on the quality of the property before I buy it, right? So I'm wholetailing something right now in Elmont. It's in pretty good shape, so it's a regular standard buyer is probably going to be conventional. But I had something that really was old that I'm in contract to sell now in Oceanside, another area, and that was an FHA buyer. And the avatar is really someone who's like a bargain hunter, right? Someone who's looked at an area, maybe they've watched the price creep up over the last 5 years, saying, I want to live in this area. I want to live in this section of this city, but nothing's coming out there, in my area. So just for example, I have this property that I'm in contract to sell, 2467 Rockville Center Parkway in Oceanside. It's in a very good area of Oceanside. Oceanside is a city. It's a typical suburb. My sister actually lives there for 40 years. But there's one section called the Terrace section, and I had never done a property in the section before. It's right near a hospital. There's a lot of doctors and nurses there. And it's seen as a more prestigious section. And this property came about, and a lot of properties trade there at like 700,000, 800,000, and got into contract on a property for the mid fours, and I put it out at the mid fives, and I found someone to buy it at mid fives. Very rare to see something that cheap. So when this buyer in particular said he's been looking for something in this section for many years at that price, and he just he watched the prices keep going up against him. This is a guy who is not getting a 203K loan. But he's a guy who I think his relative is a contractor. I've sold a lot of properties to people who are contractors, and their thinking is if I can buy it at a bargain and do the work myself, then it'll work. But that's not always the case. It depends really how bad the condition is. Sometimes it's in pretty good condition, and then I'm dealing with typical buyers that are buying in that area.
So I know you don't really borrow from RCN Capital, and I'm working on fixing that, but to buy $50 million worth of real estate every year, I mean, are you independently wealthy? I mean, how do you find the money to fund that type of business?
So I use a lot of private money. So I have a bunch of private lenders. I even very often, if I need to, we'll bring gap private lenders. So I'll bring a private lender in for, let's say, 90% of the purchase price, and then I'll bring another gap lender to lend me that 10% plus maybe the construction funds if I'm doing work. Closing costs here can also be exorbitant, like $20,000. Last deal I closed, I think the closing costs were almost $20,000. So I'll bring in private lenders on those. I prefer to not use my money as much as possible. I always want to leave money in case that deal comes out where I have to close in 2 days. So I'm using a lot of private money on my deals.
And where do you find these guys? I mean, or gals? Do they just swing by your office and offer you $1 million, or what's the trick?
No, I mean, I know a lot of it is friends and family, or friends of friends and friends of family. I do post on Facebook looking for private lenders when I need something, so people do reach out to me there. But like I said, it's a lot of people who know me or people that they've referred to me.
So here we go back to having a good reputation, having a track record, and I guess probably knowing your numbers better than anybody else in that area.
Yeah, and also I've lost money on deals, but I've never had a lender lend me money and not get what the promised return was. So even if I have to come out of pocket to make a lender whole, my lenders are going to get paid. But I am pretty good with my numbers. I will say that that's a skill that I've honed over more than a decade. And I think I see sometimes other investors saying that they'll outsource that to like a VA to come up with their numbers, and I always thought that was the bad piece of advice. I really think that's something that you need to be able to come up with valuations yourself, and you need to be able to do it quickly too.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on loop and playback, right? Ultimately, well, it's one of the things I tell people all the time in this business, like, or in all business, make sure that the trick to success, in my opinion, is run your business the way you would wish other people would run their businesses. Right? In the military, when I became the first time I became a corporal, which is the first real leadership position, I go to this corporal I really respect, and I was like, Corporal Dennis, how do I become a good corporal like you? He goes, it's easy, Harridge. He goes, take everything that every corporal's ever done that you hated, and then take everything that every corporal's ever done that you loved, and try to be that and try to avoid the other, and you'll find kind of your own, lane. And I think that's a little bit of what you're saying. It's kind of like, if you're going to put your name behind it, if you're going to put your word behind it, if you're going to commit financially, you're going to make sure that you're doing that, the numbers are right. But then more importantly, I hang up the phone anytime I ever have a dispute with someone. They say, well, the contract says, it's like, oh, okay, click, right? Like, and so I like that, even though I'm sure your contracts or lending agreements, don't have, full guarantees, you make sure that the people that trusted in you are taken care of first.
For sure. The value of having a good lender is much more than the $20,000 I'm going to have to take out of my pocket. So I want to make sure that everybody who lends me money has positive experience and gets more out than they put in every time.
So let's talk about what makes a good property for your company in, you said Long Island, correct? Yeah, I get them all confused, all your boroughs and islands and towns. And
I'm in the boroughs too, but we're mostly Long Island. I've also been operating lately in El Paso, Texas.
That's quite a jump. Oh my goodness. You even went all the way across Texas, which is like just as far as like East Texas to New York.
I couldn't believe it. It's another time zone than Dallas. I couldn't believe it.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what, in your mind, just in your business, after all the experience you have, makes a good investment property? Like, what are you looking for? Is it just discount, or are there other characteristics that you pursue?
I used to have like these more strict criteria. I don't want to buy anything on a busy street with a double yellow line. I don't want to buy it. Over the years, what I've realized is discount is really all that matters. You got to understand the diversity of product we have here in the New York City suburbs is amazing. I bought properties built in the 1800s, and I bought properties built in 2010. There's just a lot of stuff, and tremendous diversity. Houses worth $5 million and houses worth, $100,000. So for me, it's really discount as long as I can comp it and come up with, get an idea of what it's worth. Sometimes I'm very good at comping. I would say 99 out of 100, I can do it in a couple of minutes. Once in a while, it's complicated, but I have a pretty good hunch about even something that's hard to comp and coming up with a value. I just had a property that was pretty hard to comp. I bought it, put a few $1,000s into it, and I'm in contract to sell it $200,000 more than I bought it for. It's a grand slam deal. I couldn't believe it. But I think a lot of people shied away from it because it was a legal two-family in an area that has a bunch of legal two-families, but almost none had traded. It was hard to comp, but I could tell from what was going on in that area. The area's called Island Park, New York. I could tell this one had a lot of meat on the bone.
I am one of those people that likes to buy houses for my wife. Call me crazy. So I've got a 150-year-old house that we're rehabbing right now, and I wish I didn't. But can you find my wife a discount on a brownstone in New York?
Sure. Not so easy. Not so easy in Manhattan. It's hard, but I'm sure a discount, but it still might be $15 million.
It's one of those things we talk about buy real estate and wait. At the height of the pandemic, we were looking at some of those in Brooklyn and even parts of Manhattan that had those serious discounts, like the first 2 months of COVID. And you look back and there's so much of that even out the window here in Dallas that after 20-something years in the business, you drive past it and you're like, oh my gosh, I should have kept that one. Did you keep many as rental property in New York, or is that something you're looking at El Paso for? What are you looking at?
So I don't do it in New York because it's very rare for single family to be cash flow positive in New York due to the price point and the debt service that comes with it, and the taxes. Taxes here are very high. Very common to have over $1,000 a month in taxes on Long Island. So it doesn't really work on single families. I had some multis, some 3 families that I sold because the prices just went up so much, and I had a 7 family that I'm in contract to sell now. In El Paso, what I'm looking more to do is to become an owner financer. And that's really the reason why I picked El Paso, because all the people I know who do owner financing to, out, not from the seller, but to a buyer, were telling me that the prototypical good owner finance buyer was Latino. So I figured I can't find more Spanish-speaking people than in El Paso. That's what I was thinking.
Well, owner finance, I tell people all the time, I love to sell on owner finance. I hate to buy on owner finance. I want to be in control of the deal and don't want anyone else's behavior or decisions to impact the outcome of my investment. So we're going to take a quick break, come back, hit the money minute, and then I've got a bunch of rapid fire questions for you. So stick around. We'll be right back.
REI Inc. is a monthly business publication for real estate investors, covering all types of real estate investments and strategies. It is the most comprehensive real estate investment publication on the market. All of the articles are written by the top leaders in the industry, so investors are assured of always getting the best information possible. Each month, REI Inc. also profiles the top companies in the industry and provides insights and data into key regional markets. Along with their sister platforms, the REI Referral Network and Highest Invest, real estate investors have exclusive access to off-market investment opportunities and national acquisition and disposition initiatives. To learn more, visit www.rei-inc.com, where you can also access the REI Referral Network. Also, be sure and visit www.highest-and-vest.com to view the latest exclusive off-market assets with near immediate acceptance decisions and closing strategies. You can also email marketing at rei-referralnetwork.com to request more information.
Welcome back to Uncontested Investing. Quick reminder, go below wherever you're listening or watching this. Hit the like, hit the review, hit the share. Help us build our network, because you know what I say at the end of every episode. So we're back with Michael Pinter. Michael, this is the Money Minute. This is my favorite part of the show. I want you to take up to 60 seconds and imagine there's an entrepreneur, an investor, maybe a young Michael that wishes he'd have gotten out of the mortgage industry in 2009 instead of waiting around for 4 years of auditing. And you've got 60 seconds. This is the only advice they're going to get all month. It's got to be your best stuff. It's got to be your go juice. Here comes the Money Minute. Go.
Start marketing for sellers who might sell at a discount. Start right away, because marketing is momentum based, and the sooner you start, the more leads you get over time. And follow someone who knows what they're doing in your area, and don't wait to market to sellers. There's always going to be sellers out there that are going to sell at a discount, and that is going to be where you make the most money.
Well, that's great. And that actually brings up kind of the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, Michael. I have watched you in the Investor Fuel Mastermind, which, by the way, if you're listening and you're thinking about it, feel free to reach out to us. We'll make an introduction to Mike Hambright. He's always looking for the right people to join the group, not more people. But when you're giving freely of information and advice in the mastermind, I don't ever see you slip someone a bill. You don't walk over with the invoice and say, hey, that'll be $200. And I think that's the value of being in a room with people that pay, we all pay a large amount to be in that room. And I think recently, if I remember correctly, you are starting to offer some limited coaching and training services. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So I never really coached formally. I posted a lot on social media through the years, but when the pandemic happened back in 2020, New York was basically shut down for about 5 or 6 months. I had 17 houses that I needed to sell, where a lot of the buyers fell out. I had just broken up with my partner, and I really had nothing to do for months. It's hard to even understand how crazy it was in New York then, but it was crazy. I mean, people were fearful for their lives. People thought they walked out of their house, they were going to die. And one of my employees said, why don't you start for a course or start teaching? And I started doing that. It was just really something to do, keep myself occupied. So I started a course, and then people took the course and liked it and started asking for one-on-one coaching. So I have been helping students really for a few years now, and I thought it wasn't something I was going to push hard, but I found that some of my students are really doing well, and they have, I don't want to brag about my coaching, but my students have done amazing. I just had a student do his 8th deal in the last 14 months. I had another student who's doing his 4th deal in the last 9 months. And these are numbers, these are quicker than when I started. So I do offer coaching. I have a website called biggerflips.com, www.biggerflips.com. There's information about coaching on it. And I'm looking for a few more students to help this year.
Now, is that mainly in the New York area, or do you feel okay about helping people nationwide?
Listen, I operate mostly in New York, but as we said, I operate in El Paso. I've done deals in Oklahoma. I've done deals all over. There's pros and cons and advantages and disadvantages to every area, but I can help somebody anywhere in the country, I'm pretty sure.
Building off of that and the people that you've met throughout your career and through the masterminds and your coaching students, maybe we could just take a minute to talk about some experience or wisdom that you've gained from what holds people back, or maybe things that I hate to say people need to work on, because I'm not a big fan of working on weaknesses. I like to focus on my strengths, but maybe, I don't know, some tips or advice on common traits or habits that you see that people need to focus on either getting better at or eliminating from their lives.
Well, I see two things that hold a lot of people back. The first one is this, and I suffered from this when I started because I didn't market direct to sellers. It's this idea that if I'm buying the property at a discount, that I have to be taking advantage of somebody. And if you're not a jerk and you're an honest person, then that's sort of at odds with your ethics and the way your mind works. To me, it didn't make sense that I would call a seller and offer them a price and they would take it and I wouldn't be ripping them off. So that's something that I have to work with a lot of my students on the mindset, because that sort of holds them back from doing it. The second thing I find with a lot of students is fear. And it's funny, there's really two types of fear. So I try to get people to get on the phone with sellers. And I was a stockbroker a long time ago, back in 1992. And for me, the fear was just rejection. I just hated getting hung up on and yelled at. But for a lot of my students, it's not fear of rejection. It's actually fear of acceptance. They're afraid that when they speak to that seller, they're not going to know what to say to them. And I have to teach them that it's okay to not know everything that's going to happen. And that, well, most of their fears, whether it's rejection or acceptance, are things that are not really rational. And then I work with my students on the mindset so that they can be more comfortable when they talk to sellers, both sellers who are going to scream at them and sellers who are going to want to sell them their house.
I've been using this as a reference a lot recently. There's a country song that says, "I believe most people are good." And I think when you're dealing with these sellers, yeah, there's the outlier of the person that's going to get mad at you because why do you think I need to sell my house? It's not ugly or whatever. But there's also the person that calls you crying because they don't know what to do and they need help. They need someone to guide them. And I know you and I both we're very clear. It's like, look, I'm here to make a profit. This isn't a charity. But if you need to move next week, let's find a way to make that happen. And I think I'm completely in agreement with you. When you shift from providing a commodity, which is a cash offer, to providing a service, which is helping these people with whatever their problem is, that typically does involve a house and typically does involve a house in disrepair. I mean, it is what it is. It's a lot easier. I hate to say to stomach, but to stomach, right? Because you want to feel good when you go to bed at night. You want to look in the mirror and feel good about the person you are.
Yeah, and I think you have to approach it as that we are problem solvers. If the seller has a problem that we can solve, then we have a decent chance of if a problem is severe enough for us to solve, then we're probably going to buy the house. But if they don't have a problem that's very severe, we're probably not going to buy the house at a discount. People call you with the reasons why they want to sell it. It's mundane reasons. They're probably going to end up listing it. And I tell people, I've told 1,000 people, if not more, you should list this house. Don't sell it to me or any other investor. You just leave money on the table. House in good. You don't have a reason to. So I think that, and that's one of the things I teach my students is really you have to approach it as I'm trying to find out from the seller if they have a problem that I can solve. If they don't, we're probably not going to do business. If they do, then maybe we can.
That's great advice. Where do you see your house buying company going from here? Is it, you think one day you shift and you're doing a lot more owner finance in El Paso? Do you think you expand to other markets? What's next for you?
So I'm starting 2 new construction projects, which is something that it's ironic, right? Because I told you I hate contractors and hate building departments, but I'm building them modularly, right? I fell in love with this modular company near me, and I think it solves a lot of the building department and contractor issues. Not all of them, but some of them. So I always wanted to do new construction, so I'm doing that. So in the future, I can see myself continuing to do what I'm doing, maybe doing more new construction, and I would love to have a bunch of owner finance loans in El Paso or any place. I would love it. To me, that's the ultimate cash flow product, because you're not a landlord and the buyer is going to take care of the property better than you would, and is not going to call you when the toilet can't flush. So to me, it's almost all the advantages of owning rental property with none of the drawbacks.
Yeah, I mean, you and I should talk offline about that. There's a cool concept that Eddie Speed from the Note School teaches called split notes. Yeah, we've been doing that a lot recently. But then also, I push back a little because the inherent problem with owner finance notes is you do not get the tax advantages that come along with owning the rental properties. So, and you don't get appreciation. So I think if you're listening out there, right, I'm a huge fan of having a mixed bag. And my wife and I talked about it a lot. We're taking some of our rental inventory that has had massive appreciation the last 3 or 4 years, and we're selling it on owner finance. And I'll do this the highest level possible. We've got one right now. We just sold for $350. I paid $180 for it. We get $35,000 down. That's 10%, right? We carry back a $70,000 loan, right? That's or second lien. That's equivalent to 20% of the purchase price, right? So now we've received, in essence, $105,000, and at that point, you're creating a first lien mortgage for $245,000. Now, on this house, we owe about $170,000. Well, we can take the $35,000 down payment and put about half of that in our pocket after commissions and fees, and then we can take the $245,000 first lien mortgage, and it's really easy to sell that at 92 cents on the dollar, like after a couple weeks. And so then in that case, what is 8% of 240? Let's just call it 8, 16, 20 grand, right? So I walk away with $17,000, $18,000 here. I walk away with $40,000, $50,000 here, right? I'm able to put $60,000, $70,000 cash in my pocket. But to your point, the cash flow on that $70,000 second lien is more than I was cash flowing on that house as a rental property, specifically with the property tax increases and insurance increases of the last 24 months. So I think then the key is, though, and I don't mean to make this the Tim Harrod show, because we're here to talk about you, Michael, but I think the key is, though, if you're going to get that $70,000, you have to understand the tax implications. And then Jennifer, my wife, and I are taking that 70, and we'll go put 20% down, right, on a $500,000 new purchase that is in a great neighborhood that, you make most of your money in this business on the buy and on the initial kind of value add phase. So our kind of idea is, keep the cash flow, keep some equity, keep some net worth, convert it, get into a new asset, and then take advantage of the depreciation. So, all right. So, Michael, we're going to run out of time soon. We talked about biggerflips.com if someone wants to learn about your training program. If someone's out there listening and they would like to maybe purchase some property in Long Island or talk to you about private money, how do they get in touch with you?
So you can find me at Bigger Flips. You can find me on Facebook. Bigger Flips has a page on Facebook, or Real Property Buyers. You can literally Google me. I have a YouTube channel. My office phone number is all over the internet. I'm easy to find. I'm very, very easy to find. You Google Michael Pinter, New York real estate, you'll find.
Well, Michael, this has been great. And this is the time of every episode I say, do you have any parting thoughts, parting shots, anything we didn't cover that you would like to share with the audience?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
All right, man. Well, I am looking forward to seeing you in Nashville, July 31st through August 2nd. best part of my job. I get to go hang out with my friends and visit different towns. It seems like every week now, but we're getting that under charge. So thank you for being here, Michael. Can't wait to see you in a couple weeks. Everybody, that's it for today. Don't forget, click below, like, subscribe, rate, review. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, email podcast@rcncapital.com. I personally read every single one of those emails, not instantly, but most of the time. But that's it for today. Remember, your network is your net worth, and today you've been growing both. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Uncontested Investing Show. Questions about today's episode or the podcast? Email podcast@rcncapital.com and make sure to follow RCN Capital on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. See you all next time. The preceding program is furnished by RCN Capital LLC. The information provided is for general education purposes only and does not constitute any legal, financial, investment, or other professional advice. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by any speaker are the speaker's own opinion and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of RCN Capital LLC. No information contained in this episode should be construed as financial, investment, or legal advice from RCN or any individual, author, host, or guest. You should always consult a financial advisor before investing.